I finally received my complete ChatGPT export. The archive was about 2.4 gigabytes. After extraction, it contained 7,409 files, 31 conversation JSON files, and 3,076 individual conversations. That created a real test for what I have been building. For months, I have been developing a local first system involving research compilation, artifact identity, content organization, provenance, governed authoring, and human controlled release. But there is an important distinction I need to clarify. My existing system did not automatically perform this entire intake through one finished interface. I did not press one button and watch it ingest the export, reconstruct my projects, run the research compiler, and publish the results. We still used PowerShell. We still used Python. We still made deliberate operator decisions. But the system had already changed the outcome before the automatic importer existed. The obvious way to handle an export like this would be to download it, unzip it into a folder, begin opening random files, and search until something looked familiar. That approach would probably produce useful discoveries, but it would also create immediate problems. Which file was the untouched original? Had anything been modified? What came from where? Which conversations were selected? By where? Why were they selected? Could the process be repeated? Were source material and derivative outputs being mixed together? My existing architecture had already developed answers for those questions. So instead of treating the export as a pile of files, we treated it as a governed intake. First, the original zip was preserved unchanged. Then we calculated an SHA 256 fingerprint so its identity could be verified. We created a separate working extraction rather than modifying the preserved source. We inventoried the archive before attempting interpretation. We identified the 31 conversation JSON files. We indexed 3,076 conversations. Then we searched for 6 specific project threads. Coherence white paper series, empty conversation, intergenerational faith trust, file identity versus path, local research compiler, and Jesus is King. Those 6 conversations now form the first bounded demonstration corpus. The resulting structure is simple. 00-original dot 01-working extract 02 inventory 03 logs 04 selected corpus. That may sound like ordinary folder organization, but it represents several architectural commitments. The original is not the working copy. The working copy is not the inventory. The inventory is not the selected corpus. The selection does not equal publication. Generation does not equal approval. And location does not have to be the sole identity of the artifacts. That is the system operating before full automation. So what actually happened? The architecture supplied the governing method. PowerShell and Python executed portions of that method manually. The operator retained authority over progression, and the process produced artifacts that can now move into a larger system. The current maturity boundary is clear, and the architectural method is active. The governance method is active. The storage structure is active. Provenance handling is active. Bounded corpus selection is active. but the automated export importer is not yet integrated. The local research compiler has not yet run against the selection corpus. The corpus has not yet completed governed placement into the content library. Derivative generation has not yet occurred, and the publication path has not been activated. That is not a failure. That is the boundary we needed to discover. A weak development process hides that boundary and acts as though everything is already automated. A governed process makes that boundary explicit and turns it into the next implementation target. The next sequence is now visible. ChatGPT export intake, conversation index, bounded corpus selection, local research compiler, content library placement, and governed derivation. This is one of the strongest pieces of evidence that I have produced so far because it shows that the architecture was not invented after the fact to describe the successful result. The architecture existed first, then the larger real-world corpus arrived, and the architecture determined the shape of the response. The system did not automate everything, but it prevented the work from collapsing into disorder. Now the manual run can become the specification for the integrated capability. That is where the project stands, and that is what I will be documenting next.